Welcome everybody, I'm John Wally, and today we're going to be talking about Active Directory and how we can integrate that with Tenable OT to really start putting together some of our RBAC, making sure that we have role-based access, making sure that we look at those roles, and it makes it a lot easier instead of creating a bunch of local accounts that they'll actually migrate directly over from AD without any additional requirements for setting up local things once we have integrated with Active Directory. So let's start with the documentation. So if we go to our documentation, you can get there by going to docs.tenable.com and selecting OT security. You go down to your users and roles, and then user roles again. You'll see the different kinds of roles that we have here and some of the differences. So you'll see, for instance, that a local admin can do everything on the system, where you see maybe an admin that's like a domain admin that's set up with administrative. There may be some things that that particular admin can't do that's out there. For example, setting up API keys, as you'll see here. And if we go across the columns in this table, you'll see that supervisors, we have a security manager, we have a security analyst, we have a site operator, and we have a read-only. So this is good for going back and forth on how you want to set up your roles based on how you want to link that up to your Active Directory environment. So I'm going to start out by saying I am not an Active Directory expert, but I do know enough to help you get started with your roles and how you want to do that and have things working. One of the things that we're going to cover in this video as well is troubleshooting, because this seems to be a problematic area. People that know about Active Directory, it's almost always a DNS problem. So we're going to talk about DNS settings and what to make sure you have set up in your DNS so that all your Active Directory stuff works. All right, so let's jump into our Active Directory server. And hopefully this isn't too small on your screen. I'll try to zoom in on some of these when we start building these out. So if we look at our individual roles, the first thing we want to create is a role that allows us to log in as an administrator. So I'm going to go into my users for my domain. I'm going to right click here and I'm going to create a new group. This group, I'm going to call it, let's say, OT admins. And I'm going to say it's a security group, it's global, and we're going to say yes. So that's the first one. I'm going to bring up my documentation again real quick. And so this will be our admin group, and that is our OT admin. Now let's create another one. Maybe let's call it security manager. So we'll create a new one called OT security manager. We'll go to new, group, OT security manager, and we're going to say okay. And then we'll create one more here, maybe for our read-only group, just so we can see some of the different views that we have here. So this one is actually read-only. So we'll go back here, we'll create one more. And we'll call it OT read only global and make sure it's a security group. All right. So now the first thing I'm going to do is you'll see I have a user here under mine, and I'm going to add my user to this OT admins group. So I'll go in and I'm going to add this to members of. I'm going to say add, and I want to say that I want my user to be part of OT admins. I'm going to check the name. We'll say okay. And now it looks like we're added to the group. We'll apply it and say okay. So now we're in that OT admins group. So we're good to go there. Now the second thing we want to do is go over and start setting that up within OT. But before we can do that, we want to make sure that we have a right DNS set up. So I'm going to go over here and I'm just going to do an IP config. to see what my IP address is. And you'll see here that my IP address is 10.2.9.210. Now I'll tell you on my Active Directory server, I'm actually running DNS as a service as well. So you'll see this is up and running so that my Active Directory server or my domain server is also serving up DNS. And this is important. When you're setting up Tenable OT, you want to make sure that your primary DNS, if you're doing this, is Windows DNS. If it's not Windows DNS and you're pointing to your firewall as you're using DNS from that, or you have some other DNS server, you're probably going to have a hard time with setting up Active Directory. You can make your secondary those other things, but you want your primary to be your Windows DNS, or Active Directory starts acting really weird. So let's go in and do that configuration and make sure that this is our primary address. So I'm going to bring up my interface. I'm going to log into Tenable Core. I'm going to make sure I have administrative access. I'm going to go to my networking. I'm going to go to my NIC0 interface, and I'm going to make sure that my primary DNS is my primary domain server, or whatever your Windows DNS is. So you'll see this is already set up to make sure that it's looking at my Windows server for DNS first, and then it's going out, for example, and doing my all the rest of my DNS services through Google. So you want to make sure you do that. If you don't have that set up, you want to add that so your primary AD server or your Windows DNS server is set up in your primary one. You can hit save, and we can move on from there. That's going to require a reboot. Even if it doesn't tell you to do that, I recommend doing that just to make sure all those settings go through. Then we can log in on the Tenable OT side. And we're going to, as soon as we get logged in, we're going to go to local settings. We're going to go to user management. We're going to go to authentication servers, and we're going to say add server. We're going to go into Active Directory. We're going to say next. And now we have some settings we got to go to. So first thing we're going to just say, this is our domain controller. And maybe we'll name it something else. We'll say Windows AD. All right. We're going to say what domain. We're going to say, and then we have our base DN. And this is one of the first areas that people start messing up with. So I'm going to show you a little trick. If we go over into our domain server, and let me clear this out. And we do this command, and I'll put this in the comments as well, but if we do a get AD user, I'm using JWally as an example here, and we grab some key information. We want our user principal name, we want a distinguished name, we want to know what we're a member of, and we want the display name that's there as well. If I hit return on this, I'm going to open this up a little bit. Hopefully you'll see this a little bit better. And so I want to make sure that I have all of this set up the right way. So the first thing I'm going to do is you'll notice that we have this DC type 11, DC equals com. And that's what we want to put into that base domain area. So what we can do is we can copy this portion. And put that here. The next thing we want to do is know our administrators group. So I'm going to go back again. And then you'll see we have this OT admins, users. So what we want to do is grab this whole group. We're going to copy that. We'll bring it back over. And then this will be our administrators group. So this is the format that you need to bring everything over in. We also have a read-only group, and we kind of know what that is. So we could actually paste this again, and we have a security managers group. And all we have to do here now is we know this is our administrators group. We know that we had this is read-only, so we can do read-only. And then we have our OT security managers. Group. Now I'm going to do something here a little different because I want to make sure we get an error here. So I'm going to say domain admin. I'm going to forget my S here and I'm going to hit save. I'm going to go ahead and turn this on. It's going to tell us we need a restart. We'll restart and I'll be right back with you as soon as the system restarts. All right, it looks like we're back up. Now I'm going to go in and try to say that I'm going to log in as jwally at type11.com. I'm going to put in my password and I'm going to try to log in. Now what you'll see is I'm getting this error where it says there's an invalid password. Let me try again. And it doesn't seem to be working and we don't know why. So let me try one more time. All right. And so this will happen a lot of times where it says we don't have a good password or it says it can't connect and we don't really know why. So to do some troubleshooting, I'm going to reconnect on this side. I'm going to go into my cockpit. And this is on port 8000. You're going to make sure you have administrator access and we're going to go down to the terminal. Let me zoom in on this a little bit so you can see this a little better. And the first thing we want to do is look at what Docker containers are running. So we're going to use the command docker ps-a, and this will give us a list of our containers. And there you'll see we have an Active Directory container. It's our very first one. We want to look at the logs and see what's happening here. So we can say docker logs ad underscore auth underscore ad, and it will show us our logs. And now what you'll see down here is we can say, hey, this user's not part of the registered group of users. So those 3 times when it started failing, even though it was telling us it was a bad password, the real problem is that it wasn't in a registered group. So you'll see it connected back, everything worked. On the AD side, we were able to log in, but it was saying the user wasn't part of that registered group. And the reason why is we forgot the S. So let's go in and change that. We're gonna have to log in locally. We'll go into our users management. We'll go into our authentication. We're going to have to edit this. And now we're going to have to put that S on our admins group. I'm going to save it. We're going to have to reboot again. All right, it looks like we're back up. So let's try this again. We're going to log into our Windows AD. I'm going to say that it's jwally at. We'll put in our password. And now we've logged in successfully according to our Active Directory server. There are some things that'll be missing here as we saw in our different roles, but we are able to log in now through Active Directory. Now let's take a look at what some of these different roles look like. So right now you'll see that everything's almost the same except for a few little things like I don't have the ability to set up, for example, API keys. I can't do that. There's some other little things that we can't do in here, but for the most part, all of these are the same. I think there's like 4 or 5 things you can't do in here that you can do in one. Like we can't do system actions. We can't change roles and groups and that sort of thing under Active Directory, and we can't set up API keys. So those are the only real things we can't do as a domain administrator that we could do as a local administrator. So let's go take a look at our security manager. If we look over here, there are certain things we can't edit, we can't import, we can't hide assets, we can't turn on or off packet captures. There's a good bit of things. We can't do some system configurations. So why don't we go back to our Active Directory? So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to log out. so that we can change our permissions here, I'm going to go over to our Active Directory server. So the first thing we want to do is come in here and modify some of this. So you'll see here that John Wally, we look at our members, it says that we're part of OT admins. Let's remove that. We'll say yes. We're going to apply. We're going to say okay. Then let's go down to a couple of the groups that we did down here, like Security Manager. I'm going to double click here. We have our Security Manager here. And let's say that we have a member of, and we want to add J. Wally. We'll check the name just to make sure, and we're going to say okay. We'll apply, and we'll say okay again. All right, so just to make sure we're in the right groups, let's go to member of, and you'll see that we're part of OT Security Managers. Let's go back over. We'll log in now as J. Wally. And look at some of the differences. So if we go look here, now we're going to have different areas that we'll see. Like if we go to user manager, now all we have is our local user settings only. And you'll see we're under the security managers group now. We can also go look and see what we can do under our servers, our system actions. They're very limited compared to what we could do before as a security manager. If we were to go in and look at things like, can I turn on packet captures or turn them off? There's going to be some differences there as well. So you'll see that I can't do a lot of those systems that I could do, those areas that I could do before. You see they're all grayed out because I'm just a security manager. So let's do this one more time. We're going to go over. I'm going to go to remove myself from my security managers group. So we'll say remove. I'll apply and say okay. And now let's move to OT read only. I'll go here. I'm going to say members. I'm going to say J. Wally. I'm going to check names and say okay. Apply. Okay. And now let's go log in one more time. So I'm going to log out here. We'll log back in. And now we go to local settings, user management. You'll see that I'm a read-only user. You've seen that I've changed that group. Now if I go in, I can see these events, but I can't do anything with them. So if I go to actions, you'll see I can't resolve them. I can't exclude them. I can download a capture file. If I go into my inventory, I try to edit, I do any of those, they're all hidden. I can't hide it. I can't edit it. I can't do anything with that information whatsoever. Same thing happens within the local settings. I can see some of this information here, but I can't do any edits, pause, delete, or anything like that. I can't do any updates. I can't modify any of this in any way. So I'm completely locked out from anything except for reading. So hopefully this video has been helpful. I know a lot of people struggle around AD integration with Tenable OT. The big thing overall, the really big thing is making sure that your DNS is pointing the right way. And typically if that happens, everything else works. And then making sure that your domain structure, when you're putting those entries into Tenable OT, is done correctly and in the right format. Otherwise, you can look at your logs, kind of troubleshoot if you're having those problems. And the logs are pretty good about giving you information, just like saying, hey, I wasn't part of the right group. So hopefully this has been helpful. If it has, please hit that like button. Subscribe if you want to get updates. I'm doing these 2 or 3 times a week. And if you have questions, leave them in the comments. I'm happy to do new videos or answer those in the comments below. Thank you and have a great day.